New game. Let's see. I'm not even sure if the sound is on. So we get knight f6, play c4. So I did wait quite a bit to start. So we get the king seen in defense. Already not playing what I should be playing, but it's completely fine. It's not really, that big of a problem. I'm not going to get into the big theory here. I'm just gonna play theory. I mean, I don't know any theory on the. I'm not even gonna play the opening, to be honest. Just gonna play e3, very solid move. Play bishop d3. I don't think is that good because bishop doesn't do anything on the diagonal. The bishop on e2 doesn't do anything either, but hmm. Oh, mate, no. Okay, whatever. Okay, so he goes c6. It's castle. Just make sure I'm not blundering anything. There's not really any weak points in my position. And yeah, he just goes knight d7. Very logical move. I don't really. Oh, but now I can take on d5, right? Because he's committed the knight on d7. So if he had played like a6, just done nothing, then if I take on d5, take it with the pawn, I can go to c6. So I can take on d5 now, right? Because now maybe he can play c5, right? So I think I'll take. I think this is a very logical move. Very logical. Now that his knight's committed to d7. Because now his knight can go to c6. Okay, it's some. I mean, there's some reason that I'm playing, right? Okay, so their position is very symmetrical. Both of us has an open file, and the only pawn break in the position is to go e4. So my goal then is to accomplish the e4 pawn push myself and stop my opponent from doing it. I don't think my opponent's going to play the e4 pawn push for a while because the pawn on d5 is going to be a big weakness. After that, it's going to be a big weakness. So I think one move I can play immediately is maybe just to play queen b3. I think this is a very natural move. Attacking the pawn, d5, and getting the queen out. And yeah, e6 is the move I want him to play because now e5 pawn push is going to be harder for him to play. Okay, so now I think bishop d2 is also very natural. Prepares to bring a rook to the c file. Very natural move. He goes a6. He wants to maybe go b5. Very logical move. I think I'm just going to continue my development. The rook on the c file. Very logical idea. So I am now playing against his bad bishop. Now, yes, I have bad bishop as well on d2. So I'm guessing if I play, if he plays knight e5, I'm not going to care about the trade. So my opponent's going for a big attack. It's not really scary because he has no pieces. I mean, he's not really threatening any pawn advances. I have a few ideas. Um, so I'm guessing he wants to go knight b6 and knight c4, but I don't think that's a very dangerous idea, and I can always play the move a4. I can actually play the move a4 right away. But a4 right away is not necessary. I think I should bring my forces in the center first. I think I'm gonna play the move rook e1. Rook d1 or rook fd1. Very logical idea. Now the bishop's defended, and also he's never going to be able to play e5 because the pawn on d5 is going to be a massive weakness. So he goes bishop b7. But now I think a4 is even stronger because now he can't take because the bishop is hanging. And I'm not sure how he's going to save the pawn, actually. Because if knight e5, I just take the pawn. I think he's going to lose a pawn, actually. Yeah, bishop b7 was a big mistake. Maybe he should play rook b8, because then a4 is always going to be met by b takes a4, and at least he's not losing the game. I think he's losing, right? Because if you play b4, I take. If you defend the pawn, I always take, because I have 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers. I mean, this is very intuitive for me. and he can't really defend it because I'm going to win a pawn anyway. And the big point of the position is that I haven't really committed anything. So I haven't played I haven't played h4, I haven't played g4, like I haven't committed anything. So I just win a pawn for free, and he doesn't really have any counterplay. Pretty sure. So that's the point, right? Counterplay, that's the key word. Like if let's say if my opponent had the e5 pawn break, yeah, so my opponent goes for this very logical idea. Um, Now the funny thing is, I don't even not yo, yes, threatening six. I think I have to take him. Very logical idea. So I guess my opponent is taking advantage of the pin, but I don't think it's going to be very strong. But we'll see. We'll see when we get there. I'm going to take the pawn. Oh, that is a move actually. That's very clever. Although he's not actually threatening anything. I think I have to be very careful here, right? So first of all, is he threatening to take the pawn on b5? Bishop b5, knight b5, pawn b5, bishop b5. It's very dangerous actually because of the pin. He can only defend it with a queen. Yeah, that doesn't quite work. Okay, what about if I play queen a5, bishop b5, and queen a4 here looks very tempting. Maybe queen a4 runs into knight b6, and then if queen a6, rook a8, trapped my queen actually, and I'm losing. But queen a4, knight. Wait. I'm actually threatening to take his bishop. I just realized that. So, wait a second. Also, I have knight discoveries. Knight takes d5 doesn't work. Queen a4, bishop b5. Queen a4, knight b6. Queen a3, bishop b5. Knight b5, pawn b5. No, but it doesn't look any good, I think. I can also just play rook a1. Yeah, rook a1 looks very safe, to be honest. Because again, if he takes, yeah, and then I'm also preparing to bring the other rook to the c file. Because now there's two open files. And I'm also threatening the pawn on a6. I believe I'm doing something. But I think his idea here was very clever. Yeah, queen a4, knight b6, queen a6, rook a8 would trap my queen. But now I'm threatening with the rook, and now rook a6 is a genuine threat, and knight b6, rook a8 doesn't trap my queen at all. There's no, the rook, like generally speaking, the queen should be back, Like I'm gonna show the version maybe after the game. I mean, if you guys want to, I mean, I'm probably not gonna do it, but it ends up taking. Now, I don't know what to do here, to be honest. I feel like I maybe slightly misplay this. Probably I have. I'm just gonna put a rook on the c file. I'm gonna continue pressuring a little bit. Feel like he's gonna crumble at some points. Like b4 here, I think knight e2 just wins on the spot, attacking the bishop, attacking the pawn on b4, 3 attackers on the b4 pawn. So b4 is not possible. And I'm threatening some discoveries with the rook on c1. So after knight b4, after knight b5, I'm guessing bishop b5 is forced. Then bishop b5 and maybe, oh, queen b6, I have nothing actually. Yeah, I'm just losing there. So I'm not really sure what he's gonna do, but I'm also not sure what I'm gonna do. But maybe I can play rook a6 at some points. Rook a6 might be pretty good. Pressuring the bishop, which is defending the pawn on b5. So rook a6. Queen c7. Okay. Rook c6 doesn't seem right. Maybe I can actually. Nah, maybe. He can maybe play queen b6 here. Queen b6 might be pretty good. Yeah, that's what he plays actually. So I have one idea. First idea is to bring the bishop to a5. But I don't really want to play that. Yeah, he's playing very well. So another idea is playing a to knight b4. Because I don't think I can pressure this pawn anymore, right? That doesn't seem very reasonable. So I think I'm just gonna play knight e2. Yeah, I'm very annoyed by this position actually. Maybe I can also play queen c2, but that doesn't... No. Queen b4 might also be possible. Just kind of improving the position a little bit, but I think 92 is more direct, actually. I quite like this move, actually. Because maybe there's also bishop b4, and then bishop c5, get rid of the 97. Maybe... I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I feel like my pieces, however, are better. I mean, his bishop on g7 is really not participating in the game. Maybe bishop b5 in this position, bishop b5, but queen b5, knight b4 is a possibility. That actually looks pretty tempting. Because then I have rook c6 and I have complete control of the c file. Although, yeah, it actually looks pretty good, bishop b5 in this position. Because I'm getting rid of my shit bishop. But bishop b5 maybe doesn't even have to take. Bishop b5, you can go queen b7. But then I can play bishop b4. Maybe bishop b4 here is better because after bishop c5 I'm attacking the queen. So maybe bishop b5 is not necessary because he can play queen b7. Okay, we'll see. Okay, I've actually spent quite a lot of time. I don't think you guys can see the time, which is pretty bad. Let's see. Okay, I actually have to edit this in real time here. Oh my god. No, come on. Come on. There we go. Yeah, I can see my opponent's thinking. I'm also shrinking this a little bit. You guys don't need to see my entire face. There we go. And there we go. Yes. So pro play to move. So first one thing, while threatening, e5 might be a move here at some point. Although, again, the d5 pawn is very weak weakness. I think I'm just going to continue with my plan to play knight b4. Because if knight d2, I just take with it, but like, there's no problems there. Also, there's bishop b5, and then queen b7, bishop b4. I don't think there's a reason. Also, I can play bishop b4 in this position. Although bishop c5 is not really that good here, because I have to take with the pawns. I think knight b4 is very natural. I think I'm going to play pretty quickly, because he's not threatening anything. Position is extremely solid, and now my knight is pressuring this pawn, now mainly pressuring the bishop. I'm expecting him, obviously, to take the bishop, after which I will just recapture. Moves the bishop all the way there. Okay, that's a move. And now I'm a little bit annoyed what to do. So, problem really in this position is that... Oh wait, I can just play rook a6. Rook a6 I think is so natural, I'm gonna play it without too much calculation. There we go. Forcing queen d8. That's a very natural move. Very, very natural move. See, there should be a tactic up to queen d8. Can't quite find it. Okay, so knight c6 is kind of the... Knight c6, versus queen c6 is kind of like the... Probably wins the pawn, I have complete control of the c-file, maybe it's better, but is there a better move is what I'm... is the question here. Knight c6 is just supernatural, but... I think this is a very critical position, although... I don't really see what he's going to do. Maybe just rook a1, bishop b7... Not good either, although maybe... No, I think knight c6 here is pretty reasonable. I'm not gonna... But maybe I should spend time here. I don't really see anything better than knight c6, to be honest. Rook a8 and then knight c6? No. But I don't know why this move doesn't look that good. So rook c6 here, but okay, let's just play knight c6. Forcing take, and then I will take with the rook, and I have complete control of the c-file. And the b5 pawn is extremely weak. My opponent has to spend very accurately to defend. Maybe there is like... I can take the c rook as well, but I think the a rook is more accurate. So I think here maybe queen a5. Oh, queen a5, bishop a5 actually. Wait, how's going to defend the pawn on b5? Just queen b5 next. I'm not sure what he's going to do actually. Because I'm pressuring all of his weak points. He can never play e5. A little bit down in time, which is a bad thing, but This position looks pretty crushing. I have, basically the point is that I have the c-file, my opponent has really no counterplay. And when I mean no counterplay, I mean no counterplay. I mean it when I say it, no counterplay at all. Or at least the counterplay is very slow. And the next move, if he doesn't take my bishop, is probably bishop b4. And then I will read my bishop, I don't know where. So he goes here. I think maybe I'll play bishop b4 now. Obviously, I don't have to play bishop b4, but I think this is a very logical move, right? Positional, kind of forcing rook e8. Wait, why didn't I just take the... I should have calculated queen b5, actually. Okay, whatever. I can take pawn. I'm actually not up any material, which is kind of annoying. Should be. I can also just pin the knight like this. Wait, how is he gonna play here? Bishop a5? Look at that move. Pinning. Complete, like... Yeah, his position is very annoying. Bishop b5 is now a possibility. I should probably try and keep calm now. Whoa. Wait. Nah, but it's not winning immediately, is it? Bishop b6, rook b6, rook b6, queen b6, rook c8, bishop f8. That has to be like... Wait, bishop b6 just wins on the spot. Yeah, bishop b6 just wins on the spot, actually. Right? What is his idea? There is no idea. Bishop b6, I don't win on the spot. Bishop b6, I don't win on the spot. Up a piece, his queen's attacked. If you take with the rook, I win the queen. Rook c8. Position is dead lost. Yeah, you can see here, complete control over the c-file. And the thing is, right, like the engine might defend from hopeless positions like this. Not this position, but... And the engine might defend here. Engine might say it's equal here. But practically speaking, you know, that's what you gotta learn. You gotta learn the practical aspects of things. And here my opponent is just terrible. My position is totally lost. It's probably like plus 10. Because his pieces are doing nothing. I think his main mistake in this game is that he never came up with any plan. Like look at this. A6, b5 doesn't do anything. I just get my pieces out, and then I want to pump, but he found this bishop c6 idea, which I missed. And then rook e1, and then I improved my pieces, and then I got the c-file, and then bishop a5 is like the... I think this is really the end of the game. The engine might find a way to defend. But there's no way black can really make progress. And look at this poor bishop on g7. It's not been active. Maybe black should have played the bishop f8 some point, but the bishop really didn't do anything. The only way this bishop really could activate is if there's an e5 pawn break, but as you can see, this is my real advantage. This bishop does nothing on the diagonal, and e5 pawn break is the only thing that he can do to get rid of this d4 pawn to try and activate the bishop, but he never got the e5 pawn break in. And also the bishop on c8 was very poor. And the bishop could have gotten a nice future, but he did not manage to do it. So I move the queen back. Now I think I have a few winning moves. Bishop c5 I think is the cleanest one. And I think... Yeah, I think after this move there really shouldn't be anything to say, right? Bishop c5. I'm attacking his rook. I'm also pinning his rook. He's forcing this move. Now here the question is, should I take with a pawn or should I take with a rook? I think I'm just going to take with a rook. Now the pawn of b5 is hanging. I could have taken the pawn as well, but I didn't really want to trap my rook. And now, yeah, I mean, now my bishop really can shine. This is a prime example of good bishop versus bad bishop. I don't think I'm going to take it. It might be a plunder. Who knows? Yeah, so I think here I'm simply going to play for a domination. Also, maybe yeah, I can play a lot of moves here. Let's see. I can play probably just rook c7, just to trade off material. And I have a superior position. Usually you should trade when you're up material, because then you're going to simplify to a simpler endgame, you know. And his opponent decides to take. Let's recapture with the rook. Damn, I'm a touchpad. Probably going to blunder something here. Hopefully not. So now I don't obviously have to autopilot here. I think queen c3 here is very natural. Also, just queen c2 or whatever. Let's go. Queen c3. I want to go rook c8. Trade off another pair of rooks. Let's go here. Trade off another pair of rooks. Let's try not to mouse slip. So when it goes here, let's take this. Let's go queen b4. Although I think here, just to, stop any funny business, I'm just going to play the move a3. Stop any back rank checkmates. Yeah, so pawn goes here. I think this is actually a pretty reasonable move, because now pawn's not going to be able to be attacked by the bishop. So let's see. I think I'm going to bring my queen here. And his bishop is really doing nothing. Queen is tied up in front of this pawn. And it's difficult to come up with a good thing about his position. Yeah, but like Damov doesn't do anything. Actually, it weakens his king, so I can play this check now. We'll see what he's going to do. Maybe he's going to play f5. He decides not to do that. Now he can just continue attacking his position. Queen e7, attacking the pawn. Now, 95 here is possible, but I'm not going to play it because maybe I missed something or something, Who knows? So I think here I'm just going to play. I can play 95. I can also play. Yeah, so how do you play a position like this? I guess maybe my queen is a little bit misplaced. I'm just going to move the queen away a little bit. Maybe I can form a battery like bishop e1 and queen c2 here, try and form a battery in the diagonal. So it's like a very strong idea. Or should I move my queen? I'm not even sure. I guess I can move my queen to c1. Now I'm really just prodding at his weaknesses, right? So let's go bishop e1. I'm just picking at his weaknesses, right? And yeah, and if he plays like f5 here, for example, then e6 is a weakness. Yes, that's actually what he plays. Surprisingly enough, actually, I don't know why. Okay, now I can move my queen back. Very natural move, I think. Now the idea is to go 95, and if bishop b5, I have this in retreat move, and king f7 is miserable. Yeah, king f7, queen d7, and bishop e7, 85. He's down a piece, but obviously you have to still play well. You have to still continue fighting. Yeah, now knight e5 is an idea. So you can see here that I'm playing bishop e1. I want to go queen c2 and queen h7. So he goes f5, stopping that. But now this pawn's weak, so I'm threatening against this. So like, I'm generating threats. My opponent's generating weaknesses. He goes here. If I play knight e5, bishop e5, queen e6, this doesn't win on the spots. It looks like it wins on the spots. Let's go here. a5. Bishop e5, queen e6, and then queen e4. Not good, because they're queen e6, queen e5. And I'm also threatening. Okay, now queen d7. See, is there any other like obvious move? No, I'm just going queen d7. Trade off the pieces. I'm up a clean piece. Just a clean piece. There we go. Now I will play king f1. Wait, no, I'm not gonna pre-move. What am I doing? Okay, well, whatever. I don't know how to undo pre-move, so I just reload the game. Okay, so my opponent brought the king to the game. I'm gonna bring the knight back here. Opponent is still playing on, but he has no advantage. The position is equal except for the fact that I have an extra piece. So it's really difficult for black to generate any counterplay. So the plan here is to just bring the king. So I'm going to, I mean, the main plan is obviously to take the pawn on b4, but it's pretty difficult because of his bishop on d6. He goes e5, it doesn't really generate any threat. I'm just going to continue moving my king forward. And also this pawn was just hanging actually, but I mean, everything's winning, so. Yeah, the pawn on f5 was just a free pawn actually. And if king g6, I have g4. He goes here, let's take the pawn. Yeah, at this point it becomes to be pretty boring. But he can take the pawn on d4, but that move looks even worse actually. I mean, every move looks terrible. That's a recapturing. I have a few options here. Knight to 3, maybe there's the move e4. Maybe he's threatening the move e4 in general, right? So I can play the move, let's see, knight b7 maybe. Then I can take the pawn in the center. That looks pretty good. I am semi-trapping my knight, but also his bishop isn't really that good either. And I don't want him to get two connected pawns, if that makes sense, right? Like if his pawns are islands, then they're much easier to take. Let's take this pawn. Now, his pawns, let's just play b3 to save that pawn. My knight is not going to be trapped. It has 4 legal moves. And for example, knight c5 and knight d3. Move my knight back. Let's play knight c5. And then I can play knight to d3. And then my a is attacking the bishop, attacking the pawn on b4, attacking the pawn on f4. My bishop maybe one is not really doing anything, but that's because it doesn't really have anything to capture. Bishop maybe one can really only capture the d5 pawn, but it's unclear to see how the bishop on b1 is going to attack the d5 pawn. You might come up with something like bishop h7, bishop g8 to take the d5 pawn, but I mean, everything's winning. I think knight c5, and yeah, I think this is a very clear way to win. And you might think, okay, well, I'm not actually threatening anything. That's true. But I'm going to play king f3. And then I'm going to figure it out, you know? Because his bishop, I mean, it's difficult for him to play a move, right? And I just have to keep the weaknesses there for as long as possible. I'm going to play king f3. He has to defend the pawn. That's what he does. And then I'm going to improve my only piece that isn't really in the game and play this funny move. Knight e1. And I'm going to move my bishop outside of the pawn chain. outside of the, I don't know, out in the game, out in the wild. I'm going to play bishop d3, bishop b5, bishop c6, attack the pawn on d5, and once the pawn on d5 moves, it's going to be pretty nice. So let's move the bishop out here. My opponent really has nothing to do. The only weakness in my position is the pawn on f2, because that's the only pawn that his bishop can attack. But it is defended by my king, and you can't really lure that king away at all. So let's go bishop b5. I want to go bishop c6, and then lure the pawn to d4, and then I'm going to play knight d3. He has to move the bishop again, I'm assuming. And then he simply runs out of moves. Let's go here. Look at this. Complete domination. He has no moves. No counterplay. I'm just up material. So he ends up resigning. Okay, so I'm actually going to analyze this without the computer first. So let's see if you guys can see the board. Yeah, so I think I'm just going to analyze it from here. I'm not sure if I can play variations. I can play variations, but the board becomes funny colors. So let's see if I can change it to an actual analysis board and see if you guys can. Nice. So let's change this a little bit. There we go. There we go. I guess I see it even better. So let's try and analyze this game. My opponent's actually giving me a rematch, but I'm not going to rematch. This guy's rated at 1821. I can't see the rating, so that is reasonable. d4 knight f6, d4 g6, knight f3, bishop g7, knight c3, and d5, right? So this is a variation of Grunfeld. And I don't really know any theory. And I know e3 is not a good move, because it kind of it's kind of passive. You're blocking it in the bishop on c1, but my opponent does not play the best way. My opponent castles, which is good. I play bishop b2, and now my opponent is actually better, but he has to play accurately. He does not play accurately. Like, yeah, but again, I don't know any theory. My opponent is actually better here if he plays the move c5. And the point is that my structure is kind of falling apart a little bit. And now the bishop, as we saw, did not happen in the game. The bishop is kind of going to open up here. So Engine actually recommends d5, which is a little bit of a weird move. Because now the bishop is going to be open, and these positions are really annoying. And as we saw in what happened in the actual game, the pawn on d5 could have been a big weakness, but in this case, the pawn on d5 is simply not that weak. And also, Black can probably just take on c4 and get into, for example, an endgame like this, where Black's going to win back the pawn on c5. We're going to castle, but this bishop on g7 is going to act basically like a Catalan bishop. But he played the move c6, which is already a big mistake, because now the bishop on g7 is going to be passive for the rest of the game, which is exactly what happened. I castle, I play knight d7. I take on d5 now. This is actually the top engine move, which is very nice, because here you might think, okay, what was the difference? What if I take here now? But now if this stays at d5, this knight can go to c6. So the knight goes to d7, now I take. And you might think, okay, well, why do I want to take? Because now you open up the c file, right? And even though the position is very symmetrical, the pieces are just better placed for me. Like, all my pieces are placed optimally, but his are not. Now, that doesn't mean I'm winning, but it means that I'm better. So I play the move queen b3, also the top engine move, attacking the pawn on d5. I think this is a very logical move. And I'm provoking the move e6. So I was probably expecting him to go knight b6, where the game would continue, but he played e6, and now his pawn e5 pawn break is very hard to accomplish because the pawn on d5 is always going to be tapped. So I played bishop d2, not the top engine move at all. Engine actually recommends to go rook d1 first, and then bishop d2. Okay, bishop d2, e6, and now I bring the rook to the game, and it's very simple. Right? If my opponent does not bring the pieces to the game, just play stupid stuff like this, then there's always going to be something. So I play this move, rook e1. Not the top engine move. The engine actually recommends queen a3 as the top engine move, which which I don't really get. Oh, that he had maybe to play b3 actually. b3 and then knight e5 and play for this type of idea. And then basically what white says is I'm going to play b3. I'm going to control all the weak squares in the position, and then these pawns in the long run, not yet, but in the long run, these pawns are going to be very weak. But okay, rook f1, rook f d1 is what I played. And the point is very, very simple. I'm kind of prophylactic. If people ever plays e5, trying to open up the position for the bishop on d7, which is so bad. The point is that I have more pressure on the d5 pawn. So he goes bishop b7, and I play e4. And I think I'm winning here, but I'm not winning. There's actually many equal moves here. The engine, for example, recommends bishop c6, a b5, and then queen b8. Yeah, which is a very funny idea. And then rook c2, the engine recommends now queen b7. What's, I guess, defending. And then you can bring the rook to b8 here, apparently. And now, you have the pressure on this place, I guess. So this is what black should have done. Black played rook b8, which is also one of the top of the moves I take, the bishop c6. And I played this move, not the top of the move. It doesn't really matter that much. The engine here recommends bishop b1 once. And then idea after take is to go knight e2. But why would you? I don't know. Okay, I played rook a1. He take. I played rook a... Yeah, so you can see here, my opponent found a nice resource. a4, it looks... putting pressure. My opponent defends very accurately. So material is equal. I have to continue improving my position. And I'm not playing against this bishop anymore. I'm playing against this bishop, as we've seen. So I play knight e2, knight b4. The bishop goes all the way back, and I feel like there has to be some knockout blow here. I play rook a6, very nice move. Forcing queen d8. And then I go knight c6, which is not the top position move, because in this position my opponent should have taken on d2, and then play this position, which is extremely passive. And the point here is I have the c file, but the engine argues that there's probably not enough. And the engine here recommends like g3, queen c2, and kind of just play a little bit, try and pressure here and there. But my light square bishop, yes, it targets the opponent b5, but it can't really do anything else other than target the opponent b5. So I guess here, the better move, which is a very critical position here, is maybe to play bishop e1 to keep the dark bishop, because yeah, the dark bishop might seem like a bad piece, but the dark bishop is the only piece that can attack these dark squares. So I guess keeping my dark bishop was an idea. But okay, my opponent did not take on d2, and now bishop to b4 was on the spot. Actually, I could just play bishop b5 on the spot, but bishop b4 is very strong. Rook e8, and then bishop b5. Actually, the only move to keep the advantage, or not the only move to keep the advantage, but okay, whatever. Rook e7, and this was actually the blunder. Here he could have kept, he could have stayed in the game with apparently knight d6. And the idea is to go knight c5, although this position is still very measurable, and now rook e1 is the top position move. And I'm just sort of destroying the board. But rook e7 is just a terrible move, because now after take, if you capture with rook, I have rook c8 waiting on the spot. Rook e7 is just a bad move, because now this 8th rank is completely, So he played queen f8, bishop b5, bishop c5, c5, rook c5, and he tried to over-defend this pawn. I don't really want to take it. It might be a trap, because after take, bishop takes, there might be a pin, there might be some annoyances. Like, okay, I actually don't see a single annoying move here, if I'm being honest, but rook c7 is the easiest move. Just training on more pieces, and then I go queen c3 and rook c8, training off even more pieces. So training on pieces, I play h3, just a very cautious move. I'm just playing with the position. As long as I don't blunder, I should be fine. b4, queen c5, g5, bishop d3, and now you can see my opponent here, g5 is a terrible move, because now he's opening up another layer of attack. So I go bishop d3, I go queen e7, probably not the best move, because it kind of goes here. There's really nothing much I can do, but I just go back, and queen, he attacks my queen, I go back, and I just want to go bishop e1, and queen c2, and queen h7, and take the pawn on h6, and take the pawn on g5, and you can see that these things are now becoming weakness. So this diagonal is now, a really, really big weakness. So my opponent plays move f5, but now e6 is a weakness, right? So you can see moving forward with pawns in front of your king is usually not a good idea. So queen c6, queen d8, knight e5, bishop e5, there's queen e6, king g7, queen d7, and wins on the spot, right? So king h5, knight c5. You play the move e5, which is a very tricky idea. Obviously, that 5 pawn is just hanging on the spot, but I go here. Obviously, everything should be fine. Take. I go knight b7. I think a pretty nice move. That's a pretty important move if you want to play the cleanest way, because now the bishop moves away. You can say I cannot take here, obviously, because the bishop's hanging. This is still winning, because I can play king f3, take this pawn, but obviously there's no reason to play this. Knight b7, and then I take the pawn, and this is just super easily winning. Just I can win against anyone here. It doesn't matter if you're Magnet, right? Like I just go here, and I'm gonna play king f3, and then I'm gonna reroute my bishop to a better score. So I go here, 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 and then I'm provoking him to go before, or probably forcing him to go here. Then I go king, like I go here, and then I go here. And the pawn on d4 is gone. He resigned. It's not actually the engine doesn't calculate to mate, but this is completely horrible. I'm going to take the pawn on d4. I'm going to take the pawn on b4, and my opponent has no counterplay because the position is so symmetrical. So I guess this is an example that even in equal positions, crazy things can still happen. Right? Like even in some boring, stupid endgame like this, things can still happen. If my opponent plays b5, which is like, overextension. Now what I'm going to do? Now what I'm going to do is do a game review. So let's see. So I got a 91% accuracy. I made one miss. Yeah, knight c6 was a miss, but I'm not gonna punish myself for this one. Yeah, but bishop e1 I will kind of remember. Bishop e1 I think is very logical. So that the idea is that you need to keep your dark bishop because in an eventual endgame you can use the bishop to attack these dark squares in a much better. This move kind of equalizes because knight takes d2, pretty much the only move. Knight takes d2, and I have completed dominant position, but okay, whatever. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Bye.